Hey everyone, thank you for joining us here on CBS News. I am Tony DeCopel.
And I'm Lilia Luciano. The judge overseeing the New York hush money case against Donald Trump has decided against delaying the trial or dismissing the case altogether.
And what that means is the former president's trial is now on track to begin April 15th.
We are playing tag here.
Go ahead.
The presumptive Republican presidential nominee slammed the ruling while leaving the courthouse today. Let's listen to what he had to say.
This is election interference. That's all it is. Election interference. And it's a disgrace. We'll obviously be appealing. But this is a pure case of voter intimidation and election interference. And it shouldn't be allowed to happen.
Former President Trump is charged with falsifying business records tied to reimbursements for a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. He has pleaded not guilty to all charges. CBS News campaign reporter and lawyer Katrina Kaufman joins us from outside the courthouse in Manhattan. Katrina, you've been following this from inside the courtroom today. Talk to us about what unfolded inside, and if you could, give us a little bit of a fact check or a hard read of what the president said outside the courtroom in front of the barricades.
I didn't catch what he said outside the courtroom. My sound was off. But inside the courtroom today, they've been discussing discovery that came to light recently, and the judge has been trying to assess what this discovery is and really whose fault it is that it came to light so late and how relevant it is. And it was really quite tense in that courtroom. Judge Merchan was grilling Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, asking him why he didn't try to request this documentation sooner. And he actually pointed out that Todd Blanche had worked previously for the U.S. Attorney's Office, and he really should know how to deal with such things. Ultimately, the judge decided that the DA is not at fault in any way for this late document production, and this trial is going to proceed on April 15th.
And Katrina, let's talk about the civil case now, because these things are happening both at the same time today. So a judge today both extended the deadline that was supposed to expire at midnight today for him to pay the bond in his massive New York civil fraud trial, and also substantially reduce that amount that he needs to pay. Talk to us about, what the decision was, what's the agreement, and is this a victory for the former president?
This is absolutely a win for Donald Trump. He originally was going to have to get a bond of over $500 million. And just last week, his lawyers filed and said that this was a practical impossibility for them, that he couldn't come up with the money. This is a significant reduction. Trump has already said he's going to be able to pay this in cash very soon. In addition, the appeals court has also stayed much of the ruling from Judge Engoron. So Trump can continue to get loans. He can continue to serve at the head of a company. The only things that are really still in place is that there's going to be an independent monitor who continues to oversee the Trump organization, and also an independent director of compliance. So there will be scrutiny over the finances there. But other than that, Trump has until the September 2024 term to perfect his appeal in this case, as long as he puts up this new bond amount.
All right, Katrina Kaufman, thank you very much. Let's go over to Jessica Levinson, who is a CBS News legal contributor and a professor at Loyola Law School. Jessica, thank you very much for being here. The president, in the aftermath of the decision on the hush money case, came out and made some comments about the timing, accused Bragg of bringing the case now only to interfere in the election. Do you have a quick reminder for our viewers of why the case is proceeding now as opposed to not 2021 or earlier?
Well, a couple of things, but let's remember that the Trump team's tactic has been to delay, and then to say, I can't believe you waited until so long before the election. And I understand the president speaking now.
Jessica, yes, we're going to go to Trump, who's giving some comments right now.
This is all Biden-run things, meaning Biden and his thugs, because I don't know if he knows he's alive. And it's a shame. It's a shame what's happening to our country. This is election interference. They are doing things that have never been done in this country before. We've never had anything like it, certainly not at this level, but we've really had nothing like it that I've been able to find. It does happen a lot in third world countries, banana republics. If you look at what we just left, you have a case which they're dying to get this thing started. the judge cannot go faster. He wants to get it started so badly. And there's tremendous corruption. You have Pomerantz, Mark Pomerantz. He was Hillary Clinton's lawyer, or Democrat National Committee's lawyer. He worked in Paul Weiss. He walked in and he took over the district attorney's office. Nobody's ever seen anything like that, to prosecute Trump. And then they wouldn't do what he wanted to do, and he goes out and he writes a book. Long before any decisions were made, he writes a book about it. And the book gets published, and everybody's reading his book. And the judge said there's nothing wrong with that. And if you look at Bragg had a fit over that. Bragg said this trial is now dead. We can't do the trial. Well, that was one of the problems, and the judge should have allowed that to happen. And you had other instances like Colangelo. Colangelo is a radical left from the DOJ who was put into the state working with Letitia James, and then was put into the district attorney's office to run the trial against Trump. And that was done by Biden and his thugs also, because they can't win an election because of the borders, because of energy prices, because of inflation, because of Afghanistan, the worst and most embarrassing day in the history of our country. He can't win because of Russia, because of all the problems, because of Ukraine being attacked by Russia. And he can't win because of the October 7th attack of Israel, which he should have never allowed to happen, would have never happened if I were president. Ukraine would have never been attacked if I was president. And you wouldn't have inflation if I was president. We didn't have inflation. So all of these things, so what they do is they do election interference, which is court cases, and let's try and tie him up, and let's take as much of his money as possible. I respect the appellate division for substantially reducing that ridiculous amount of money that was put on by a corrupt judge named Engoron. He ought to be looked at, seriously looked at, especially what he did with valuations. He's the one, he's a fraudulent valuator, where he values Mar-a-Lago at $18 million, and people say it's worth 50 to 100 times that much, the biggest experts in the business. So he ought to be looked at, and James ought to be looked at, because she tried to get him. She's like the puppet master of the judge. And, you know, our state, this state, is losing tremendous prestige. It's losing its companies. It's losing its people. They're fleeing, and violent crime is flourishing. And we can't have that. We can't have that. No city should have that. And it's happening in other cities, but not with the lawfare. The lawfare that they're doing is incredible. So they could have done this in the case of the trial that we just left, one of the many that are going. Every single one of them is run by Biden and his thugs. It's the only way they think they can get elected. And I think so far it's backfiring, because the people of this country understand it. It's backfiring. But they're being run, and they're running all of these different cases. So ridiculous, the cases. Every one of them is ridiculous.
You have been listening to Donald Trump speak about the, well, really campaign as he does when he walks out of a courtroom, some opportunities that he's had. Recently, today, the news is that his criminal case has been moved. The trial is set to start, the New York City one, on April 15th. The civil case that regarding the Trump organization, he does not have to pay that massive amount of almost $500 million. He has to put the bond on $175 million and has some 10 days to do it. I want to bring in Jessica Levinson, who we were just talking to. She's a CBS News legal contributor and a professor at Loyola Law School. Jessica, we were talking about, the merits of the case and all that. Now we've heard from former President Donald Trump. As he often does, he will use the pulpit to, call corruption and ulterior motives on anybody involved in these cases. Can you perhaps give us a bit of a fact check? Did anything of what we heard from Trump now strike to you? Strike is important to address.
No, I mean, other than to say this is what we see from the former president, which is every time there is somebody who is part of the criminal justice system, whether or not they be a prosecutor or a judge's clerk or the court staff, or even an attorney who I believe has left his employment, we see the former president go after them. And that's what he did this morning. So Letitia James, the attorney general who brought this New York civil fraud case, is, of course, an elected official. She's a Democrat. He goes after her all the time. He's also gone after, as we heard in the beginning of this campaign speech / press conference, the way that the Attorney General's office and the District Attorney General's office have conducted themselves, and that they've brought on, for instance, I think he mentioned an outside attorney that was brought on. That's normal. You bring in people who have different levels of expertise, particularly for complex cases. So this is a stump speech outside of a courtroom, which is quite typical of the former president. He's using these cases as part of his case to the American public as to why he's a victim of the criminal justice system and why he should be reelected.
You know, it's interesting, Jessica. It is a campaign speech, obviously. He has said, and others have said, that the courtroom is now the campaign trail. But, you know, as stump speeches go, he was throwing out pretty obscure names. I can't imagine members of the general public are really up to who Pomerantz is or who Colangelo is or even who Judge Engoron is. These are pretty minor figures in the overall political constellation. And yet... And there's less focus, really, on some of the substance, which I want to put to you, which is we've got April 15th now as apparently the date when the hush money case will begin. But if I heard correctly, there's still another appeal possible that could delay that. So how likely is April 15th to be the date on the calendar when at last we will circle it, plan our lives, and begin a trial?
Probably tax day, April 15th. One note, it's not actually, as I understand it, an appeal. It's actually another motion to try and delay. So, of course, and I know there's so many moving parts here, for the New York civil fraud case dealing with the bond, that case was up on appeal, and appellate court said not, and I think it's important to remember this, not we're reducing the penalty, we're reducing the amount that Judge Engoron found that you need to pay, but you don't need to pay as much now while the appeals process plays out. You just asked me, Tony, about the other case, the hush money case. That's a criminal case, and the fact that this morning we were in court hearing about whether or not that case should be dismissed. Of course, it should not, or delayed, which it now has been until April 15th. My understanding is that the judge said, if you want to file another motion saying that you want another delay, go ahead and do that. But I don't think, given what we heard from the courthouse today, that that motion would be successful. I think that, I don't know if we want to use colored pencil. Maybe let's not use a Sharpie yet, but we're getting close to that case is going to start mid-April.
All right, that's good to know. Thank you, Jessica. Let's go to CBS News campaign reporter and lawyer Katrina Kaufman, who joins us once again from outside the courthouse in Manhattan. You know, Katrina, the different prosecutors in the different Trump cases are like people who are all trying to go through a single doorway, and they keep having to say, excuse me, pardon me, excuse me, no, you first, no, excuse me, pardon me. So how will this April 15th date now affect all the other cases that are going forward, like the Georgia one, let's say that one?
I don't think Georgia's affected by this. I mean, that most likely the earliest it could possibly happen is this summer, and Fani Willis is saying that she does want to push forward with that August trial date that she had initially aimed for. What this will intersect with is the Supreme Court arguments for Trump's immunity appeal, though, which is related to his D.C. election interference case.
And Katrina, I'm curious about, you know, when it comes to, Tony was talking about the timing, when it comes to the campaign, Trump had said that he couldn't afford to pay what was required from the civil case because he planned to use that money for his campaign. We're hearing about, you know, Truth Social perhaps being a bucket where he can draw from. Do these cases, do these results actually impact Trump's ability to campaign at this point, or, as we saw, provide an opportunity for him to further his efforts?
You make a great point. I think that both things are true. Trump really uses these hearings as campaign stops. When I was covering the New York civil fraud trial, anytime there was a break, he was stepping outside the courthouse doors and basically giving a campaign speech. But it does infringe on his ability to be on the campaign trail. So what he said he'll do once this criminal trial starts and he has to be in the courtroom is that he'll be in court by day and he'll campaign by night. And as we'll see, I'm sure he will also use the courtroom as a place to communicate his messages.
Even with a fancy backdrop there. Katrina Kaufman and Jessica Levinson, thank you both so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, guys.